Knit Together with Kim and Jonna. I'm Kim.
And I'm Jonna.
And here we are back in Pick Up Every Stitch. Yay!
In Mount Kisco, New York.
Yes, exactly. And of course, thank you again to Karen and Felicia for hosting us. Karen's in, where is she right now?
Spain.
She's in Spain right now.
Her daughter.
Yeah, and after the holidays, Felicia had a little week off.
Yep. Her first week off in 6 years.
Yes. And they told her, don't call.
She said she got reacquainted with her home. So that was
nice.
good.
Yeah, that's really nice. So yeah, gosh, there's so much to talk about, but I kind of want to jump right into the knitting because I'm wearing this weird, crazy thing.
You want to explain why you're wearing the weird,
why I'm wearing this weird, crazy...
And why I'm wearing a sweater with one sleeve.
Oh, everybody knows what happened there. That's pretty obvious, but...
It's my Rhinebeck look, right?
Yeah. So yeah, you want to talk about what we're wearing? Why not, right?
Okay.
Really fast? So, I am wearing Panem. Is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
P-A-N-E-M. And does it remind you of a movie? It's supposed to look like the Katniss cowl from the Hunger Games. Mm-hmm. And the woman who introduced us, the reason we're friends, her name is Natalie. And last Christmas, was it last Christmas?
I think so.
We wanted to knit her something for Christmas, but we thought of it way too last minute.
Yeah.
Right? And then you talked to her about it, and what would she want?
I asked her what her favorite colors were, and she sent me a picture of a painting that was in her house. And the painting had all these colors in it, and I couldn't believe that there was a yarn that matched the painting. So we bought it.
Right.
We bought 4 skeins of yarn, kind of not knowing what we were going to do exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we knew that she wanted some kind of... She said she gets really warm and it stresses her out, so she wanted something that was not a turtleneck and...
right, she doesn't like something around her neck.
Right, and not a full-on sweater. So, yeah.
And then she mentioned, actually...
She did. She mentioned the Hunger Games. So I think I just put Katniss, K-A-T-N-I-S-S, into the search bar in Ravelry. And a bunch of these kind of... she's an archer. The Katniss Everdeen in the movie is an archer. Is that right?
Yes.
And so she's, always got like one arm free to do her archery. So there are all these like slings or cowls or I don't even know what you would call them. So anyway, I just picked the one that I like the best.
Yeah. And so we bought the pattern and we bought the yarn. I think we really made that commitment in August. Her birthday is actually in the summer. So sometime in the summer we bought the yarn. And then... just,
It sat at my house.
Yeah, fiber festivals and everything, fall, Vlogmas, we just didn't have a chance to knit it. But then, right after the holidays, I finished my holiday knitting, and I said, Jonna, bring me that yarn. And so she did. And so I said I would do the knitting, and then you did the braids, right?
Some of the braids.
A lot of them, most of them. There's a ton of braids. So it's basically knit in 2 pieces. Let me tell you first. It's the Panem by Christina Morrissey. And it's in Manos del Uruguay Franca, which is 100% superwash merino. And we made the size extra large. She's about my size, right? So this is an extra large. But also the pattern says it really, because it isn't a garment,
right?
It really should fit anybody.
Right. And
I did use the suggested needle size of US 15. But it's knit in 2 pieces, so you knit the sling first, which is this part, and honestly, if I did it again, I would have added length. When you're in this middle part, all the increases happen, and then you do the middle part, and then the decreases. I probably would have added a little more length, so it kind of draped down a little bit more.
Didn't the pattern suggest that you measure certain body parts, or?
I mean, yeah, but it just is a general size, guideline. Okay. So, yeah, I made the sling first, and then you make the cowl, and, I mean, it's super easy knitting. And the cowl, the sling, actually, you just seam it, and then the cowl, though, she said it looks best if you do Kitchener stitch. So I did, and, making sure that you know how to do Kitchener on pearls also, because there's these pearl sections. But then it turns out it wouldn't have really mattered, because if you're going to put braids over them. The braids are optional. But anyway, so it's knit with these wide bands of knits and then these wide bands of pearls.
It's almost like ribbed.
Yeah.
Really wide rib.
And if you look at Katniss's, it almost looks like ropes, kind of. Like, in a way, like ropes. And so you don't have to add all the braids, but it's supposed to give it more structure. So I knit both of them in just like 2 days, right? Really fast. And then I sewed them together. She does say to put on one of the braids before you sew it together. Oh, because the edges curl up because it's basically stockinette or reverse stockinette. And it's planned to be that way. Like this top edge just naturally curls in, and that's how she wanted it. And then the bottom edge naturally curls out, and because there's pearls, and so you put a braid over the pearls, and then it stops it from curling too much. So anyway, so I did that, sewed them together how you were supposed to, and then I went crazy with the braids.
Yes.
How many braids did I ask you to make? 7 braids, maybe?
No.
And then I made maybe 2 braids, just because I wanted to keep going.
Yeah, I thought there were like 11 in total, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. And I did some are fishtail braids and some are regular braids. They're different sizes, different amounts of strands. She suggests 4 to 10 strands. And so you just do whatever you want. And then in one section I put 2 braids, or in 2 sections. And then I had some gray left over. So I actually added some gray braids just for a little accent color. I kind of like it.
I know.
And then I made 1 braid with mixed.
Right, you added the gray.
The gray into the color that it's actually in. I felt like that tied it together. But yeah, I just finished it today actually. And it is hers.
Of work to sew the braids on.
Look, the ends are sticking out. I never know how short to cut after I weave in.
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, the end is sticking out. It's going to drive me crazy now. But
and there were a ton of ends to weave in.
Oh my goodness, when you're sewing down a 12-strand braid and you get to the end where they meet, that's 24 strands plus each end of the yarn you used to sew it on. So it was a lot of sewing, but it was mindless, easy sewing, and I had tons of fun. And at any point I could have said, that's enough braids.
Right.
But I felt like it gave it, I definitely felt like it kept it open. Otherwise it pulls together because of the pearls. So it keeps it open, and I love that. I do think the cowl would be less floppy in a non-superwash, don't you think?
Yes, for sure.
I mean, it's really soft, which is amazing.
But it also might tend to pill.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really, But we just got it for the color. We love it.
Yeah.
And so, this is the Katniss cowl, or it's really called Panem by Christina Morrissey. And it was a super easy pattern to read. Yeah.
Yeah. You were like, it's 18 pages long, but every row is written out.
Yes.
Right.
I forgot I said that when I was printing
like,
it.
No.
18 pages? There's not even sleeves.
And the sample was knit in like this, I think it's the Fisherman's Lions brand or something, and it's like an oatmeal-y color, and it's actually pretty wearable. Like the sample actually looks pretty non-costumey.
Yeah.
I think in this colorway it looks a little costumey.
Yeah. Should I put on a show?
I know.
I didn't bring my bow and arrow today.
No.
But I tried it on today to show my daughter, does this look okay with the shirt? And she said, I want to make one. She wants to make one in an oatmeal color.
Cool.
Yeah.
She's a powerful woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Does it make you feel powerful?
Sure.
I thought it was so funny. We had a viewer question that asked about our favorite games or activities, our childhood games and activities that we liked. And so, of course, I'm just listing kind of just, normal things. And I asked Kim, what kind of games did you play as a kid? She's like, I had a unicycle and a pogo stick and... Stilts. And I was like, are you auditioning for the circus or what? A tightrope. Did you have a tightrope?
No, I didn't. But I loved doing all those things. I loved riding my unicycle, figuring it out. I loved bouncing around on the pogo stick and walking on stilts.
That was not what I expected you to say. So.
But I also loved reading and things like that. But I definitely loved interesting things like that.
I loved playing in the dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, we played a lot in the dirt.
That's fun. Yeah, so this is for Natalie, and so it's, and now it's actually growing on me a little bit.
Yeah.
At first when we were looking at the color, we were like, ooh, what is that? But it really is kind of
and
fun.
it matches the painting that she showed us.
Oh, perfectly. Exactly. It was a sunset painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She'll love it.
Yeah, she'll love it. Anyway, what are you wearing?
So I'm wearing a partially or almost finished object.
Yay!
So I can only knit one sleeve in a day. There's the answer. Somebody asked. So I woke up this morning. So I had the body finished last night, and I soaked it in some Eucalyptus, and I laid it to dry in front of one of the radiators. And so this morning it was mostly dry. So this morning I picked up stitches for the sleeve, and I knit the sleeve. And it's just a 3/4 length sleeve. So yeah, I finished it and bound off, and the sleeve is still on hold, but that's okay. Anyway, I just really wanted to wear it. No, it's the Miromesnil. I'm going to say it with an American accent. Miromesnil. But the French way to say it, I think, is Miromesnil. And I think it's the name of a street in France.
Oh, nice.
And I saw this sweater on a customer here at Pick Up Every Stitch when they had their sale, their big sale.
Oh.
So thank you, Natasha, because I saw she was wearing a black one, and I just noticed these beautiful, the way the yoke increased. So there's like 16 sections, and you make about every 5 or 6 rows, I think, you make an increase. And as I was doing it, she described the increase as you do a yarn over, and then on the next round, you knit that yarn over through the back loop. And I thought, that's just like a make one left. And I thought about it some more, and I realized it's exactly like a make one left, except you might have a little bit, it might be a little bit more visible because you've got that yarn over. But conversely, if you make a backwards yarn over, do they call them backwards yarn overs or reverse yarn overs?
I don't even know.
So if you make a reverse yarn over and then you knit it through the front, that is a make one right.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I know. So I thought, oh my
Instead
goodness.
of lifting the bar.
Right, instead of lifting the bar. So I don't love to make one right and make one left, but I thought, well, if I ever wanted to, switch it up and do the yarn over, and then on the next round, the trick is just to remember when you hit that yarn over to be sure that you knit it through the back loop before I make one left. So anyway, I loved how the increases were, semi-visible. And I don't think she did the little gathering in the front, but I did because I liked all the details of the sweater, so I did the gathering.
So it's a quick increases, right?
Yes, right here. There's a bunch of increases for about...
Only in the front center?
17 increases maybe right here.
Oh, wow.
Only in the center, but this is such a great pattern because you can make the cropped version, which this is the cropped version. You can make kind of a tunic version, or you can make a dress version.
Oh, wow.
So for this one pattern, you get all these different like mix and match pieces. So I did the bishop, 3/4 length bishop sleeves. You can do the long sleeves. You can do straight sleeves. You can do ribbing at the bottom. I chose not to. The pattern, what did it say to do? It did say to do a tiny bit of ribbing. And I don't know, I'm off of ribbing lately. I'm just like, ribbing.
Yeah, you started messaging me, I don't want to do ribbing. And I said, then don't.
I know. So you just cast on, no ribbing, and start the sweater. And the cool thing was so I knit the smallest size, but the first 3 sizes and the last 3 sizes, so there's 6 sizes, you don't really have to make a decision on what size you're making until you've knit quite a bit of the sweater. Wow. So, number 1, I could check my gauge and see where I was at, because if my gauge was tighter, I might have gone up to the next size, but I thought my gauge was going to be pretty much spot on, so I stuck with the smallest size. So I love that. It's almost like instant sweater. No swatching required. Use, your cast on as your swatch, and then determine your size as you go, as long as you're kind of in that, first 3 sizes or the last 3 sizes. If you're in between, then I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But you can make these little gathers in the front, in the back, on the sides, and lots of sleeve variations. And I've even seen people pick up stitches around the neck and do ribbing at the neck. So I just thought, it's such a versatile sweater, and I love it.
It is. It's beautiful.
Now, about the yarn.
I forget.
The designer is Cleonis. Cleoni. And the yarn. So we were in here, like I said, on sale day, and there was some clearance yarn. So there's some yarn that was on sale, and then there's some clearance yarn that they're not going to continue to carry anymore. And I had my eye on this yarn, but hadn't bought it because I just thought it's a little, don't get me wrong, it's beautiful yarn. So it is Lanivendole. It's made in Italy, and this is a heavenly blend, 50% wool, 25% alpaca, fawn alpaca. and 25% cashmere. And I thought probably, oh, this is just too luxurious. And, you know, these are 50-gram skeins.
You're budget conscious self.
Yeah, I'm a budget conscious person. But anyway, it was on clearance. And I thought, okay, now or never. So I bought 2 skeins thinking I was going to make an Oslo hat. Okay. So then I come back in here, see Natasha in this sweater, and decide to buy the remaining skeins. So this colorway is called Mercurio, which I believe is related to Mercury, the god, the messenger god. But I loved this yarn because it's this kind of taupey gray, but it's speckled, but it's just so subtly speckled. You know, I'm not a huge speckle person, but every time I got to a little color blip, it just made me happy. So there's little blips of rust and kind of a wine color, and every once in a while a little bit of lavender, and then some gold. And I just thought it was just a really unique and unusual yarn. So that's why I wanted to buy it. So the pattern calls for worsted, and I'm thinking, how am I ever going to get worsted gauge? So I come up to the counter, and I'm not sure what color of mohair to choose. So I bring this up to the counter, and Kim's on my right, and Felicia's on my left. And I'm asking Felicia, who is, you know, she knows all about the mohair. And she's like, oh, use both. And I was like, oh,
really?
I don't know.
Really? Both?
Both? Really? Can I splurge and buy both? So I just rationalized that this was on clearance. And you said, yeah, go for it. It was Christmas time, so it was kind of a Christmas present to myself. So I held all 3 together.
Yay! Yeah. And someone commented, because we did a sneak peek of it on Instagram, like, you're crazy. What if you had to what if you had to frog anything?
I mean, I did have to think back a couple times, just a little bit, because I forgot one thing or another. But I don't pull from the center. Well, this was caked. These were in, what do you call these? Mini hanks?
Bullet skeins.
Bullet skeins. And I just, you know, I don't pull from the center of these. I always pull from the outside. I pull from the outside of my cake, and my yarns never tangled. And I didn't keep them in plastic bags. I just kind of set them on the bed or set them on the sofa where I was sitting, or wherever it was. Kitchen counter, which is where I am most days because of Teddy. But yeah, so I have to say, I don't think this color shows up very much. I could have probably.
It probably lightens it. I think it probably does. It lightens it, I'm sure.
Okay. So I needed all of this to get gauge, and I think the gauge was 18 stitches over 4 inches on a US 8. So I got gauged. I measured it this morning after blocking, and it was perfect. So,
but we still have to talk about. Did you talk about what bind off you did do?
No.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Just a second.
I wasn't sure how much time we had left, but so I went through all the projects on Ravelry. There are about 450 projects. Some people just bound off, and I thought, okay, well, that's one option. Or some people did an I-cord. Some people did a little bit of ribbing. Some people did more ribbing. But I got a lot of suggestions on Instagram, which I appreciate. Thank you. And I think that we should do a mini-sode on how to bind off with, you know, without ribbing.
Yeah.
Or an alternative to ribbing. Because a lot of people said, oh, following, you know, please let me know what you decide to do. So I just bound off loosely on the same size on my gauge needle. And it did roll a little bit right after I bound off. But then I, like I said, I washed it and I blocked it. And I did use those comb pins.
I love those things.
Yeah,
those blocking things.
Yeah, that comb. And almost no rolling at all.
Yeah, I love it.
I know. And this is my entry into the Bougie sweatshirt cowl, and that started December 28th and is going to March 21st, and it's part of KC from Young Folk Knits podcast. So Kim, I think from the Knitting Posse, is also bougieing along, and someone asked, what does bougie mean? It's actually an American slang word for luxurious, or like if you go to Starbucks and you get like a pumpkin spice latte, that's a bougie drink compared to going to like the gas station and getting black coffee, right?
Yeah.
So how you would describe bougie?
I guess, yeah.
Like, yeah, luxurious.
Sure. Yeah,
so
luxurious.
This is definitely a luxurious sweatshirt, but it's very sweatshirty.
It is.
Yeah.
Glamorous,
That's my new
glamorous
favorite sweater.
sweatshirt.
And I really wanted to wear it, and Kim had already put it on the notes, the show notes.
Because I told her,
I was
we
like,
saw
well,
each other Monday.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can
You can
totally
do it, you can
finish
do
this.
it. No. I really didn't want to skimp. I wanted the sleeves to be, they're 10 inches from the underarm, and then you just bind off, and it just turned out perfectly. You increase rapidly here to make the
I see that. It's really beautiful.
to make the bishop sleeves. I just thought it's a sweatshirty sweater with a lot of really cool details.
I love it.
That make it a little bit more bougie.
It's so beautiful. You're wearing your hat, too. You got to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, that's another FO.
Oh.
That's my only other FO.
Oh, do you want to wait then?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll wait.
Okay.
But yeah, so we just jumped right into the knitting there.
Yeah.
So I did want to mention, before we move on to the rest of the knitting, that thank you, Susie. I mentioned when I did my Vlogmas about my grandma's Christmas cookies that I didn't know that much about my family history. And a viewer who, what did she call herself? An avid genealogist. She just does it for fun. She messaged me and got a few more details, and she sent me this huge packet.
Wow.
And now I know, let's do my grandmother first. Now I know that my grandmother's parents were from, it says here, and actually I know, because I've heard people talk about Ellis Island. I don't know if they came through Ellis Island, but the records, things are miswritten, right? I did notice just the other day that it says that my maternal great-grandfather is from Uppland, Sweden, but then also another relative is from Uppland, Norway. So are there two Upplands?
Right.
Or did they accidentally write Sweden when they meant
Right.
Norway? I don't know. So everybody from Scandinavia.
Right.
I didn't look it up. I should have looked it up, like where it is on a map. If there is an Uppland, Sweden, and I'm sure you say Uppland, maybe, Norway. But yeah, so my great-grandparents came from Scandinavia they were born in Scandinavia in the 1870s. And then they did end up living in North Dakota. That's where they passed away. Wow. And then my father, his family, I thought they were from Germany. And that I didn't realize my father was actually born in Nebraska. My father has passed away years ago. And his parents were both born in Nebraska. But then their parents, some of them were born in Germany, and then those relatives came to the U.S. The first German relatives came to the U.S. in the early 1800s. So it's so fun, and I have all these names and everything. Yeah. It's really exciting. So thank you so much, Susie. I'm really grateful, and I honestly haven't had time. There's pages and pages. Wow. I haven't had time to really look through everything, but that was very sweet of you. And I asked, can I pay you or something? And she's like, no, I love to do it for fun. Do you have any other, she's like, do you have any other relatives you want to find out about?
Yeah.
She asked you too, right?
Yeah, she did.
That was really sweet.
So have you done 23andMe?
I did. But then you just find, whoever happens to do 23andMe.
Right. But, it showed that you were mostly Swedish and German. And
absolutely. I'm like 90% Scandinavian.
Right. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And a little bit German.
Right.
Like mostly Scandinavian. Because even some of my dad's side are even from Scandinavia. So, yeah. So funny.
Cool.
Yeah. I was blown away. Within days, she already knew my grandparents' names. I didn't even know my great-grandparents' names. Didn't even know them.
Wow.
So.
I remember when I met you, I think I asked you, what's your background or what's your heritage?
Yeah.
So I did email her back too.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yay. That's fun. So yeah, that was really a cool thing. And then interesting, recently I went to my husband's family's house to have dinner. We had a family dinner, and one of his sisters, her daughter, my niece, did some study abroad in Ireland, and her new husband, who's from Ireland, was there. And so my sister-in-law started knitting, so we started talking about knitting. And then I asked Connor, my niece's husband, do you knit? And he said, no. And he doesn't have that much of a brogue, actually. But he said, no, I don't, but my mother does. And I said, oh, really? Wow. He said, I have 2 sweaters. You want to see them?
Oh, wow.
So he went up and got them and brought them down, and I did take a picture, so I'll insert it. And these sweaters are amazing. And I said, do you know the pattern she used?
She probably made it up.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
You know how the families have, like clans have different sweater patterns. But her name is Teresa O'Donnell, and she's from Clare, Ireland. So if you know Teresa O'Donnell from Clare, Ireland, with a son named Connor, who's now in New York, tell her that her sweaters are gorgeous. Or if you're watching this, Teresa, I mean, just amazing. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Cables, I mean, wow. Gorgeous. So any news about Teddy?
Oh, yes.
Everybody always asks about Teddy.
I have an update. So in our last episode, I mentioned that he swallowed one of these needle stoppers, the orange one that's smaller than this, but still. Emergency trip to the vet, which is why we delayed our filming a day. They induced vomiting. It did not come up. And I was just thinking, there's just no way this is going to make its way through his tiny intestines.
You were so worried.
Well, about 9 days after he swallowed it, he was perfectly fine. About 9 days after he swallowed it, he did vomit twice. And then he seemed to perk up and recover. So I I did call the vet and send pictures. I have all these pictures of vomit and dog poop on my phone. I know. So then the very next day, he happened to poop inside the house when I wasn't looking, which was fortuitous because I looked at the poop and I thought, oh,
there it is.
My gosh. And sure enough, there was the needle stopper in its entirety. I was so grateful. I was just thinking, I permanently damaged this dog. He's always going to have that thing inside of him.
You felt so bad.
Every time he got sick, I was going to think it was because of the needle stopper. So I'm very, very, very relieved that it came out with no fuss, no muss. I texted the vet. She said, Merry Christmas. And yeah, he's doing great. But funny story. So he is very, very bitey. And I know that, puppy biting is totally normal, but we'd really like to kind of, we've made progress in like every area except for the biting. So I consulted the vet's website and found a dog trainer. And her name is Misa, and she came to the door, and I opened the door, and she has this Stephen West twist and turns. Is that what it is? The latest Stephen West MCal shawl on. And I was like, okay. And I said, oh, that's a Stephen West shawl. And she said, are you a knitter? I said, yes. Are you a knitter? Yes. So, hi, Misa.
Hi, Misa.
So, Misa spent an hour with us, and it was so amazing just to see her interact with Teddy. She taught us games to play that will help stop the mouthing, and made a YouTube video that's just for us. Sent that to me. Sent me some documents, just kind of backing up what she said. And so we signed up for 2 more puppy sessions.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So we all really loved her. So that was funny.
I always find it hard with pets. Teaching them to do something is easy. Teaching them not to do something, like teaching a cat not to jump up on the kitchen counter.
Right.
Is, or like you said, like a puppy not to nip or bite. I find that or not to bark. I find that.
We've tried all the and ouch and... my husband's resorted to just yelling, saying no over and over and over again. So, the biting has been hard. He's definitely a high energy dog, and we have him confined to the kitchen pretty much because either I'm in the kitchen or, I can't have him just roaming the house because he will pee, and we're making progress.
Right.
So anyway, he's doing great. He's still sleeping through the night, and he is already up to 10 pounds. So he's gained a good 2.5 pounds since we had him. We're having a little bit of food issues, just trying to figure out what's best for him and his tummy. So,
do we have any new pictures that we can insert?
Yeah, I actually took a little video this morning when I was taking him out for a walk, and he made it like 3 houses down the block and decided he just sat down. He just didn't want to go anywhere. He was just done. I don't know what his deal is. He will walk better with my husband. I don't know why.
That's so funny.
And he's like, I think he knows I'm a softie. He's like, okay, Mom, I want to go home.
Oh,
but then he just wants to go back to our yard and dig and eat things he shouldn't eat.
So funny.
Today he had a feather in his mouth.
Oh, gosh.
I was like, oh, I don't think he should swallow the feather.
So I guess he's still a project and not yet a pet.
He is still a project, not a pet. Like I said, he's an investment. He's an investment in an awesome pet.
And an awesome pet.
Yeah, he's going to be great.
That's so cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah, everybody always asks about Teddy.
He's a total lap dog. He loves to sit on my lap.
So fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I think you talked about how... When did you talk about how he's a project and not quite a pet yet? Was that in your Catching Up with Jonna video?
Mm-hmm.
So we loved Vlogmas so much that we were trying to think of a way to incorporate these shorter, not so edited Dogma style videos into our regular content during the year. And so we decided once a month each of us, and we may sometimes do one together, but we'll do these Catching Up with ... series. So the first Monday, oh my goodness. The first Friday of the month, we publish our episodes. Usually 2 weeks later on that Friday, the middle Friday, we publish a mini-sode, which is not always mini, as we've said. It's just more topical. The last one we did was...
Ask Us Anything Knitting Edition.
Yes.
Which will already have aired by the time this airs.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there were so many Ask Us Anything questions.
Yeah.
We asked our viewers to ask us anything as like a 1-year anniversary fun thing to do. And we gave away a giveaway for whoever asked a question. And then we told the answers in now 2 videos. So the first one was more personal kind of answers. And then Jonna she put all the questions together and she saved all the knitting related questions for the knitting edition. And we just, that will air. That would have already aired. But that was fun. But then on the other Fridays, we're going to do these, for the most part, these shorter Vlogmas style. So short videos. I guess vlog, you would just call it vlog then. Vlog style. And Jonna did one already, Catching Up with Jonna. And actually, I will do one before this airs. And I'll probably talk about my children's knitting classes, which I just started again. I had taught them to kindergartners through 5th graders as an after-school program before COVID, and then they weren't happening for obvious reasons. And so I just started a session, and that's fun. So I'll probably talk about that in my Catching Up with Kim.
Okay.
So you'll hear about that.
Fun.
And before we move on to the rest of the knitting, Vogue Knitting Live in New York City is going to happen.
Yeah. The last time we went was pre-COVID, right?
January
I think
2020.
Several people were sick, actually, after Vogue Knitting Live in 2020.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
wow.
do know that, yeah. I think Kristen and Ellie from Skander Knits.
Because we didn't know. I mean, by February, we really knew that it was a thing, and that was mid-January.
Yeah, and there were a lot of international travelers, and it was hot in there. It's in a huge space, but it was pretty packed.
Yeah,
Close
like
quarters.
The only class, and up until then, it was the only class I had ever taken, a knitting class, and it was with Josh Bennett. It was a great class. And that's even where we really solidified the idea of Knit Together with Kim and Jonna, but as an in-person knitting group.
Right.
And we met a few people there in our class that we invited.
Jen.
Jen Shields Tolland, who's the designer, JST Knitwear Designs. And did we meet someone else? We met someone else there. Can't remember who. But that's kind of where we just started really talking about having these in-person groups. And we did it for 2 months, and then everything shut down.
Yep.
And now we're here doing it on YouTube. But anyway, so are you going to Vogue Knit Live?
I don't know.
It's mid-February, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be just shortly after this airs. So I already registered. I'm going to take a ton of classes on Thursday and Friday because I really haven't taken that many knitting classes, and I just think it'll be fun. And then I kind of saved Saturday. I don't know if there's a way we can... I think, Paola asked us to maybe hang out at her booth.
I'd like to go to the marketplace.
Yeah. So we may do some sort of meetup at the Mayak booth at some point so we can meet viewers. But again, if you see me or Jonna... then please say hi. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so I think that's the business stuff.
Okay.
Right? All right. So moving on to other finished objects.
So it was funny. In I think it was our New Year's Eve video, I said something like, if I just want to knit 47 hats, I hope you're here for it. Well, guess who knit like 47 hats?
Not
Anyway,
that
I have one other finished object. I actually have 4 finished objects, but I only have one of them. So
right, because they're gifts. Yeah. So do you want me to talk about mine first, or you want to talk about yours?
I don't know.
Go ahead. I mean, mine are all the same thing, basically. So
Okay. So on the day we actually filmed episode 14, I walk in here and Karen has this cute red beret on, and my mom had asked for a beret for Christmas. So I was asking her all these questions and what yarn she used and the pattern and everything. So she loved the pattern. She said it was easy, and I said, sold. Let's pick out some green yarn. And I picked out actually the Tibetan Pasquale that I love, that you've used for Oslo hats. I've used for Oslo hats, that I'd love to use for a sweater. Anyway, I picked some mountain green, and I knew I had some green mohair at home to match. And I cast on and didn't even read the pattern, because on Ravelry, if you look where the suggested yarn, it says DK. So I said, oh, okay, well, we're good. And I'm knitting, and I'm thinking, there's no way I'm going to get 17 stitches over 4 inches with this yarn. So I'm texting Karen and trying to figure out what's going on. Well, I read the pattern, and you actually are supposed to hold DK double. So what does that make? Like an Aran bulky?
Yeah, something like that. Mm-hmm.
Not a DK. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, it's a good thing my mom has a small head. And I hope that the blocking, does wonders. So I ended up finishing that one. And I did, so they suggest that you stretch it over a dinner plate. And then you do a running stitch around the opening of the beret just to cinch it in while it's on the dinner plate. So I don't have the right size or shape dinner plate. So I just cut a piece of foam board and wrapped it in plastic wrap, to the dimensions that were specified in the pattern.
Did you just think of that, or did you?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So
what
I
a
don't
good
have
idea.
my plates are like small bowls, they weren't the right size. So anyway, that was my first one. My second one was in this color, and I held the Rowan Kid Silk Haze that I already had in the Turkish plum color for my aunt in California, who's my mother's sister. And then the third one I made I came in here, and this wasn't even out on the shelves yet. And Felicia's like, oh, look at this. We just got this moondrake in, and I saw this color, and I thought, oh my goodness. I have to get this for my friend for Christmas. So I made her a beret. And this, the Corriedale DK, is definitely plumper than the Pasquale. So I was closer to gauge, but still not on. And I have to say, it's called Fua Fua. And it is 70% brushed cashmere and 30% superwash merino. And if you are at all sensitive to mohair and you want some fluff, this is so soft.
Everyone who comes in the store oohs and ahs over this yarn.
I know.
Yeah.
It's amazing, except for the funny name. But I don't know where they came up with Fua Fua. But anyway, this is the blue sage color. And I made some mitts to match. So I downloaded the Fire Pit Mitts by Taylor Earl from Wool Needles Hands. And I wanted something a little bit more elegant. So I kind of used her pattern just for the thumb gusset and for the number of stitches to cast on. And then I kind of did my own thing. I did an I-cord bind off around the top and around the thumb and some long ribbing. And the pattern was nice because the mitts are neither left nor right. So they're interchangeable. So I didn't have to worry about making, 2 left mittens. So yeah, cool. I really liked the pattern, and I could see definitely making some fire pit mitts, some real ones. In the future.
And did you say it's the Studio Beret by?
Oh, I didn't say. So this is my fourth one. It's the Studio Beret by Churchmouse Yarn and Tea, I think.
Cool.
And you cast on with a size 4 needle, then you go to a size 5, then to a size 6, and it was super easy.
Nice.
Yeah, it took me maybe 4 or 5 hours to make one.
Cool.
And the cool thing about berets is that I feel like people with short hair can wear them because you can wear them back on your head and you can wear them any which way. And you can wear them for warmth. You can wear them for, just cool French girl vibes. I'm not really a beret person, and I can't say enough good things about berets, and I'm definitely a beret person now. So I also, who knew that I was on trend, because no sooner do I finish a beret that I see Casey from Young Folk Knits does a little French girl episode, and then Amy Palco from The Meaningful Stitch is wearing a beautiful red one. Now, they made the Beast by Sari Nordland, which is a great pattern. I own that pattern. So this beret was made from the bottom up. Some berets are made from the top down. Mm-hmm. This pattern did not have this little stalk, which I think is also called...
Is that S-T-A-L... No, S-T-A-L-K?
Yes.
Okay.
Also called a pip, I think, some people said. So I just added it. It's just like the remaining 6 stitches. I just did some I-cord, 4 rows of I-cord, and then bound off. But another pattern that I really like that I want to try is by My Favorite Things Knitwear, beret number 3. And you make it out of Friedrichs garn, which is this, I don't know if it's bulky or super bulky or chunky. Anyway, the Friedrichs garn by Sandus Garn, and you felt the beret. So I thought that that would be really fun to do a felted beret because that's more traditional.
Right.
So that's a pattern I want to try. And then a viewer suggested another pattern called the Xian, and I'm probably not saying that correctly. It's S-I-U with the acute accent on the U-N. It's an Irish girl's name, an Irish girl's name. And that is also a worsted pattern, and it's not felted, but this one has 6 sections. That one has 8 sections, I believe. But locking is key for a beret. But I feel like you could wear a beret.
Really?
Because your hair can stick out.
A little bit?
A little bit, yeah. And it's actually much warmer than you would think.
You would think.
Yeah, because it's covering the top of your head.
So cute.
So anyway, I love it.
I made a beret once for my daughter-in-law.
Oh, yeah.
I made her a purple ranunculus, and then I had leftover yarn and mohair, and so I made her a beret.
Do you remember the pattern you used?
Nope. Nope. Yeah. That was before the podcast, so I didn't write anything down. I didn't keep any records.
Right.
So
did you use a plate to block it?
I did.
Oh, cool.
I did. It actually came out really, really small, and I was surprised that it actually even stretched over the plate. So yeah, I don't know if she's ever worn it, but...
So because my gauge was off, I ended up making the large. The last two berets I made were larges. So, and it fits snugly around my head.
It's perfect.
We measured my head, 21 inches.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. On the smaller side of normal. And I have it folded over a little bit, but yeah, it fits fine. Someone asked, is it going to be is the fit going to be difficult? Is it going to be too stretchy here around the opening? But I just used a regular cast on. Actually, that's not true. The pattern has you do is it a cable cast on or a knitted cast on? Are those the same thing?
No, different.
No.
There's a twisted cable cast on.
No.
Where you go between the stitches and then put it on this way, and then there's the knitted where you just go knit into the stitch and put it on.
Then it's a knitted cast on. So I did that just to make sure that the cast on was firm, I guess. But yeah, love it.
Yay!
Love the color. I definitely want a sweater in this color.
Now I wonder, because John has been inspiring me, as we'll see now with the next thing I'm going to talk about. But I would never think that I would knit another beret, but now you're making me want to knit a beret.
And the dedicated, I don't like hats knitter.
So I had
I've broken the Guinness Book of World Records for hat making.
Maybe. So I had no intention of really doing any Christmas knitting, but then we were doing Vlogmas, and I could have finished my Amina, and I could have finished the baby blanket, but I don't know. I think I was here one day.
You were here because we were supposed to film, and then I was at the vet with Teddy.
That's right. I talked about it.
And you were left to your own devices.
Left to my own devices. And I kind of had it in my head that I wanted to maybe knit a couple monster cable beanies because they would be quick Christmas knits. And then I talked about that woman and where I live, and that she has a recurrence of cancer, and so I wanted to knit her a hat, a Monster Cables beanie. So that day, I think I bought 8 different balls of yarn, and that just escalated. I think by the last episode 14, I had knit hers, and it actually was too small. I did meet up with her, and it actually was too small, and I didn't have a pom-pom on it yet. I ended up ripping that one out, and I reblocked the yarn loose. I put it in like a hank, tied it, and then soaked it and then dried it, and then I knit it again. I actually started, okay, so Monster Cables Beanie, you've talked about it, by, who is it again?
Cali Taylor.
Cali Taylor, yes. And it's a super bulky hat, right? And so I bought this yarn. The first yarn I chose was the Gawler Yarn Super B, 100% Superfine Merino. And it is some thick, thick, thick yarn. Haven't really knit in super bulky, and little did I realize there's a whole bunch of, if you look on the tag, there's different gauges. There's so many different variations of super bulky. So hers was pink like this. And the yarn is gorgeous. I mean, it just, the definition and everything, it's really, really thick. But I'm a tight knitter, and there's only one size. The pattern comes in one size. So I like I said, I knitted, and it was too small. And so then I ripped it out. I started it again. I tried to use a US 17 because it suggested a 15, 11 and 15. And it was just way too big. The size difference between a US 15 needle and a US 17 needle is so huge. And so then I just ripped that out, and then I decided I'm just going to consciously knit looser.
How did that work for you?
It worked.
Good.
And so the rest of the hats, and how many did I make?
24?
Yep.
24.
I started
In
December.
how many days?
I cast on the first one December 18th, the one that was too small, and I ripped it out. Or no, maybe that was when I cast on the second one. The 18th of December, and in 19 days, I knit 24 Monster Cables Beanies.
And how are your hands?
They were sore. They were definitely tired. But I did it. It was so fun. I could knit 2 or 3 in a day. Because remember, though, I said, after we finished Vlogmas, I said, I'm just going to knit
nothing.
for that entire week. And then it even continued on into the next week because my husband wasn't feeling well. So we just kind of stayed home. And so, I knit a lot of them. So I did use 4 different yarns. I made 2 or 3 of them with that Gawler Super B. And again, I love the yarn. It's just really, really, really thick. And that was really hard on my hands. Beautiful yarn. I got all my pom-poms here at Pick Up Every Stitch. All the yarn too. And if I insert pictures, there's a lot of them, so I don't know if I will. But when I give a gift hat, I always give the tag so they can see washing instructions, and I remind them. I give extra yarn. And I started giving, I ordered little plastic needles, tapestry needles. And I give each person a little tapestry needle because if they take the pom-pom off to wash it, how are they going to get it back on? Most people wouldn't have a tapestry needle. So I tell them then put the ribbons of the pom-pom, through the tapestry needle, put it back on. And then I did also, I think I mentioned this in the last video, I went on Amazon. I typically don't buy a lot of stuff for my knitting on Amazon, but they had this set of all multicolored different 1.5-inch big buttons. And so like Jonna, so I could have perky pom-poms, underneath each pom-pom, I have a button. So the ribbons go through the top of the hat, through 2 of the holes in the button, and then tie a bow. And so there you go. So that was one of the yarns I used.
So, real quick, I don't know if anyone else has a callus.
Yes. I have it on my thumb.
Oh. So I guess I push the needle with this finger. So I have this really nice callus here, but knitting 4 of these, and it was, dense gauge and small circulars, I poked one of the needle tips through my callus. And oh my goodness, I lost my entire callus. Oh gosh. So now I have to build it back up again.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I have a callus on the end of my thumb.
So it's where it's hard to wear a Band-Aid and knit, but I had to have a little bit of padding there because without fail, I hit the exact same spot repeatedly, where I stabbed myself. So, anyway.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That hurts. So my favorite yarn, I have to say, for knitting the hats was Malabrigo Rasta. Everybody knows that yarn. Super bulky, and it's 100% merino. And so these are 2 of them. These are already claimed. This one I think is for my hairstylist, and this one is for a woman at church. Love them.
They're beautiful.
And then, honestly, they were running out of the colors of yarn that I wanted here before they got another shipment in. And I actually knit, I decided I wanted to knit matching hats for my son and grandson and my daughter-in-law and granddaughter because my son and daughter-in-law, their birthdays are in January. So they weren't Christmas knits, but they were going to be birthday knits. And so when I finished all the other hats, I wanted to knit first the Monster Cables beanies for my daughter-in-law and granddaughter. My granddaughter is going to be 3. So I asked them to measure their heads, but before I got the measurements, I just decided, let me just cast on. So I got, she likes purple. So I got this yarn, what is it? It's also Malabrigo, but it's Noventa. It's also a super bulky, but that's really, all 3 of these yarns are super bulky, but they're completely different in feel and hand. This is actually...
Is this merino?
This is superwash merino.
Oh,
yeah.
It is definitely...
completely different.
Softer,
drapier. And also, it's a smaller gauge, so it comes out to be a smaller hat. So I knit them these, and the way I made one for the again, I didn't have their head measurements yet, but I thought for the little one, I went down a needle size for the 3-year-old. And after I finished the hat, put the pom-poms on, the 3-year-old hat was way too small. It looked like an infant hat. So I brought him in here one day, and Fern was here. Fern is always here. She lives in Florida now, right?
No, I don't know.
I think she does.
Wow.
Or
wow.
Down south somewhere. And so, but she happened to be here that day, and I put them down on the table, and I said, this hat will never fit a 3-year-old, right? And she's like, it looks like an infant hat. And I said, oh my goodness, well, I have to find someone to give them to. She said, I have a new baby in my family. So I said, you want it? So I actually gave her, because they were matching. So I just gave her both hats. I said, this one for the baby, give that one to whoever. As I thought, let me just start over. I'm not going to rip them out. That's silly. So then, but the yarn, I did make another one, and this is actually for my voice teacher.
I love the pom-pom.
It's cute, right?
Did you use a hairdryer on your pom-poms?
I didn't yet. Yeah, you can, and actually says it now. I got some.
Oh, really?
I got something, because I did order, actually, I think this one pom-pom, because I wanted a specific color. I got it. I ordered it from Etsy. And she does say use a hairdryer, a blow dryer, to fluff up your pom-poms.
Just like a cool setting? Or
I didn't read that part.
Oh, okay. I always wonder.
But yeah, so one thing I like about this yarn, and I was thinking it would have been good to send to Bordeaux, because the hat's for my daughter-in-law and, the 4 hats for the birthday. Those have to go to Bordeaux. This hat is much lighter weight, so, and it's not as cold in Bordeaux, so I thought it would have been a good choice, but it turns out I gave those away. So, I have mohair or pom-pom fur in my nose. So the Noventa, I have to say, I like it, but it's going to make a smaller hat, a softer hat, a more lightweight hat, right? Wouldn't you say? So I like that. But so that's another good yarn. Now the very last hat I made, actually someone else wanted red, and there was no more.
This is Ravelry red.
Love it.
I know, it's such a intense claret, like it's a scarlet. It's a
I made that
scarlet.
for my daughter Jenny too, same hat, and my mom.
Oh wow!
So
cute.
I bought 3 of the reds here, and then there were none left. So I was looking around, and I thought, well, can I hold multiple yarns? And so,
interesting.
Yes, I don't even think I told you this. So we ran around. This is Malabrigo Rios, which is a worsted. And I asked Karen, I held 4.
Oh my goodness.
4 strands. So I got 2 hanks or ball. I pulled from each end and made this hat. And it's I feel it's stretchier. Yeah. You feel it? Oh, it's beautiful. So
how many skeins of yarn?
Just 2.
Okay.
And just pulling from both ends.
Goodness.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
So so this is Malabrigo Rios worsted, and again, it's in Ravelry red. Yes, because they carry that color through. So yes, I made 24 Monster Cables beanies, and I have to say I have a little more yarn at home to make some more, but I needed to take a rest because they did make my hands really tired.
Yeah,
I have to say. So do you have any more finished objects, or should I talk about my Oslo hats?
Yeah.
Okay. So my only other finished objects was Jonna inspired me to make Oslo hats. And really because I had already made now the Monster Cables beanies for my daughter-in-law and granddaughter. Oh, I forgot to say. So how did I adjust the size this time? I did finally get their head measurements. And I mean, who would have thought this? But my daughter-in-law has a 56 centimeter. Of course, it's metric because they live in Europe. 56 centimeter, and the 3-year-old 52 centimeters. Only 4 centimeters different.
Wow.
And the hat actually runs small. When I posted these Monster Cables beanies on Instagram, everybody said, "Don't they run small?" And they really do. The pattern does run small, I find, and then I'm a tight knitter, as I said. So if you make them, just consciously knit looser if you can, or go up a needle size, whatever you need to do. But yeah, so there are only 4 centimeters difference between my daughter-in-law and my the 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And then my son, his head is 62 centimeters. And then their 5-year-old son is also 52, just like his 3-year-old sister.
Oh, interesting.
And just like my 7-year-old grandson.
Oh, wow.
Because I went over to their house and I said, try this hat on. And I measured his head and it was exactly 52, which is how big my granddaughter's head is.
Mm-hmm.
So that really helped me with a visual. And then I decided, since the mother and daughter really don't have heads that big of a difference, and I also put an adult Monster Cables beanie on my grandson, who's 7, an adult one, and it fit fine. So for my granddaughter, I just knit 1 less repeat.
Right.
Or 1/2 less repeat.
Oh.
So I just made the same hat, just a 1/2 less repeat. And it's perfect.
Okay.
So I'll insert pictures. And so then I decided, of course, my son's birthday is also in January, so I asked Jonna, what hat should I make? So the mom and daughter have matching hats, and now my son and the son get matching hats. And she said, well, of course you have to make an Oslo hat. And I have to say I had no desire to make an Oslo hat.
Yeah.
It's such a smaller gauge, but I did, and I bought one of Jonna's favorite yarns, because they had a beautiful red as well. I don't have it here, but it's also the, what's it called?
Pasquale Tibetan.
Yes, Pasquale Tibetan. And they do have different sizes, thank goodness. And because now I had their measurements, I made my son the large, which is the man size, and then I made my grandson the small, which is, yes, the junior woman size.
Okay.
And they turned out beautifully, and they were really fun to knit. I did, instead of gauge swatching, I just started the first hat. And after I knit a little bit, I did not hit gauge with the suggested US 4, I think. So I ripped the whole thing out. It was just about maybe 2 inches. Ripped it out and cast on with the US 5. Still didn't get gauge, went a big 2 inches.
And then I suggested make a muscle burrow, and you were like, no.
I don't even want to make
I'm still working on this.
a folded brim. I'm not going to make an entire double hat. So, sorry I'm talking so much. When you make 26 hats, since the last episode, you talk a lot. So anyway, I did then rip that out, US 6, got gauge, perfect. So I started it, and I did mention this in our Ask Us Anything knitting edition. I finally understand the confusion and the design of the Oslo hat. And even after hearing you talk about it so much, it just didn't, until I actually did it myself, it didn't make sense. But now I finally realized that you only turn it once. So as you're starting to knit, your right side is your right side. And after you finish the folded brim and you knit the cast on edge together with your live stitches all the way around to get your double brim, then you knit another like what?
3/4 of an inch.
Yes. 3/4 of an inch, and then you do one German, you turn and do one German double stitch, and then you keep going. And I was looking at it so confused. When do I turn it back?
Right.
When do I turn it back? And that's when it hit me. I get it. So what was the right side now becomes the wrong side.
Yes.
So now it makes sense.
And I wish I had remembered to say that in the previous episode, but that's exactly right.
Yes, it finally makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So as Jonna said, I was so confused. And I've sat here and heard you talk about the hat.
Yeah.
How many times?
And very experienced knitters. The Knitting Posse,
Yeah.
why am I drawing a blank?
Laura.
Yeah. Laura made it.
Yeah. So I finally get it. And I just kept hearing Jonna's voice in my head. Trust the pattern. Trust the pattern.
Just do what it says.
I did. And they're beautiful.
Yeah.
And they're in the mail. And hopefully, it actually snowed in Bordeaux today.
Oh, wow.
It never snows in Bordeaux. But they don't have the hats yet. So hopefully they'll get them soon. Anyway. So, moving on to, works in progress. What you got?
I'm still working on my muscle burrow hat, which is nice. It's nice, kind of in between palette cleanser kind of thing. So I'm on my second color, and this is Woolfolk Snow. This is a pattern by Isolde Teague called the Muscle Burrow Hat, if you haven't heard of it. And the cool thing about this is that you can use any yarn at any gauge, so any needle size, and you just start knitting. And then she's got these big long charts that, you just find where your gauge is. And then she tells you how many increases to work for the hat. So I knit about, I think we're about 12 inches from the crown to the color change. And this is in Woolfolk Snow and Tinned.
Beautiful.
So this is the Snow, which is like a marled version with this color tinned. And I have heard some people say that this yarn is super pilly, but I have to say this has been stuffed in and out of knitting bags and brought with me in the car, and no pilling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's beautifully soft. And so this is going to be a reversible hat, completely reversible, and it's going to be long enough to be folded up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so this is for my daughter, Emily, and hopefully I get it done before winter ends in Texas, which is probably soon. But that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just nice to have something like this to knit on.
I'm sure there's still cool days.
That's why I like the Oslo hat too, because it's just, I told you there isn't one purl stitch in the whole hat. And
not one pearl
there's
stitch.
not one pearl stitch in this whole hat. So the only thing I did was on my second round after switching colors, I slipped the first stitch at the beginning of the round so I didn't have a jog.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah.
What were the decreases like on the top of that hat? Or the bottom of the hat at this point?
I know. So these are the increases.
Okay, so increases first.
Right.
And then you'll go back and do decreases.
Yep. And I'm not counting rows. I do count rows, though, on when I'm making sleeves, because I feel like measuring to 10 inches is just not accurate enough. You're definitely going to end up with asymmetrical sleeves.
Especially from an underarm. It's very hard to exactly find.
It's
For me,
very
that
hard.
underarm meetup is just hard.
Right.
So
I'll
I'd rather.
stick sometimes the double pointed needle from the wrong side because I can see where that seam is, so I know what my first stitch is. But I definitely count rows. I don't measure for sleeves. I don't measure for socks. I'm not going to measure for this. I'm definitely going to count rows. So I have a little progress keeper here showing where the last increases were made, so that I can count the number of rows and make the other side of the hat match. Yeah. It's funny, when I first started knitting, I thought progress keepers were just like jewelry for your knitting.
Yeah.
I thought they were
Like charms.
Charms.
Yeah.
Like bits and bobs that you would just use to decorate your knitting, because they were often themed. And so people would choose, a theme or colors that matched their project. But I have to say, progress keepers are such a great tool, because as I was, I knew I wanted about 10 inches. So as I was measuring, as I went along, I put a marker where it was 8 inches, and I could easily eyeball that extra inch or that extra 2 inches. So
It's harder to eyeball 8 inches than it is
Exactly.
to eyeball, 1 inch. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. I'm all about the progress keepers now. So speaking of handy knitting tools, I just wanted to mention that everyone knows that I have trouble keeping track of my rounds, but I have this app on my phone called the Crochet and Knit Counter, and it is available on iOS and on Android, and it is the easiest, most functional app. And the cool thing is, like, you don't have to set anything down to tap it. You literally can tap it with your pinky finger, and you don't even have to set your knitting down as you pass your beginning of round. And you can have multiple projects. You can color code them. So
your
can
phone doesn't
find
fall
them
asleep
easily.
while you're knitting a row?
No, it actually doesn't.
Oh, well,
so
that's
it must
good.
have something built into the app
Yes.
that keeps your phone on.
Yes.
So I alternate. I flip back and forth between the counter, and then I also have GoodNotes on my phone. So if I need to look on the pattern, I just, swipe up and I can find my GoodNotes, consult the pattern, then go back to my my counting app, and it's working pretty well for me, I have to say. It makes a little clicking noise, which is very satisfying when you tap it. And you can actually change the increments. So every time you tap, it can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 5, whatever. But I have to say that's really working for me these days. So the Crochet and Knit Counter.
We wrote it down so we would remember.
Yes.
I did remember one thing, though, about the Oslo hat that was also confusing. And I do feel like it's not written correctly in the pattern, are the decreases.
The decreases. Now, how did you end up doing them?
Okay. You place your markers in one row, and then the next row, it says knit to the first to like 2 stitches before the next marker, do a decrease, and so on. And then when you get back around to the last marker, it doesn't say to do one after that marker. but you didn't do one after that marker. That's one of your things. So that was a little confusing. So I just, that's one reason, as we know, with my knitter's planner, I read the pattern and I write the basics of the row so that I can understand it. I don't write word for word, but I write it in like kind of my own shorthand so that I know what it means. And I realized as I was looking at it, I'm missing a decrease. The one right after the beginning of round.
It's actually in the next round, but it goes with the first round. You know what I mean?
But it doesn't say that after the marker.
No, it doesn't.
You do that increase, that decrease. It doesn't say it. So anyway, so I just right at the beginning of round, I just did that decrease there, and then did what the pattern said, and then you finished with one before the
And I've
marker.
done it that way also.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't say to do it after the beginning of round marker.
But I did because I had started it.
Yeah.
So I just thought,
you're trusting the pattern.
I need one more increase.
Right.
One more
well,
decrease
good thing you realized.
after the beginning of round marker.
Because it doesn't say it.
Which you're really into the second round.
Right.
But, yeah.
Anyway, so that is a little confusing.
It was.
Just so you know.
The pattern could use a little bit of an update, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, because I think if it did say at that point where you do that turn, please note, now your right side becomes your wrong side.
Right,
if it had that one sentence, I think it would help so much.
And I think in the original pattern, you sew the brim.
Oh, you don't knit together.
You sew it, yeah. You don't knit together. So,
but I did use her videos. She has videos that somebody made. They're in Danish.
They're in
right?
Danish.
But I just turn the volume off. It doesn't matter. But how to catch those stitches from
they're very
cast
well
on.
done.
Oh yeah, they're very nice. They work perfectly. Actually, I had the volume on first. My husband's like, "What language are they speaking?" Anyway. So I really don't have any whips really to talk about that you don't know about. I barely, because I did all those hats. Sometimes I would take this with me and knit the baby blanket. Of course, again, it's my Vika shawl inspired baby blanket. The Vika shawl is a pattern by Isabel Kramer, and everybody knows I'm knitting it in Long Yarns Aura, and the baby was already born, and I'm plugging away. And now that I finished this, because this is now finished, then I can't decide. I'm either going to finish my Amina, which I'm tempted to do that because then I can wear it in the next episode.
Yeah.
And when it's still cold. And I'll finish that, and then I'm going to finish this, and then a clean slate.
And then here comes the sun.
Here comes the sun, yes. Yeah. And that'll be about time for the sun to come. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I really don't have any whips to talk about.
One thing I was thinking about, we really do think about our episodes after the fact, and we think about what we said and how we answer people's questions. So I was thinking about the question about the tension of the floats inside of a colorwork sock.
Yes.
And I remembered and forgot to say in that video that Summerlee Design Co. Has an excellent YouTube video about her colorwork socks. So I suggest you watch that. And then she also has a free pattern. So that's the free pattern that I use for my vanilla socks. And it might be called School of Sock. I think SOS, School of Sock.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So it's a nice vanilla pattern. But anyway, she has beautiful sock patterns, beautiful colorwork sock patterns, and then some tutorials to go along with them. So that's another place to look for advice on colorwork socks and floats and things like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you going to get back to sock knitting? You haven't done that in a while.
I am.
Okay.
I'm super inspired. I can't say why. I don't know. I guess it's just round and round. So
yeah.
I did pull a trick out of your hat though, because I was knitting the sleeve and there was I came to a spot in the yarn that was a little bit unspun and fuzzy. And of course, it snuck up on me and I thought, I'm just going to have to tink back and I'm going to cut the yarn. I'm going to have to weave in my ends. But you know what I did? I actually knit a stitch and then I pulled the slub and made a little loop and then just continued knitting.
Oh, yeah.
And then the next round, I picked it up as if it were a float. So I picked it up over 2 stitches and I didn't have to cut my yarn. I didn't have to tink back. Yeah, voila. So that slub is now on a little small loop that's invisible on the inside of the sweater.
Yeah, because what happened was recently we were with, were you with me? With Elise?
With Elise.
Oh, yeah, we were knitting at the gym, and she's knitting a little skirt, and she got to a slub in the yarn and just normally you just
Kept
keep
knitting.
going, and it's no big deal. It doesn't really matter, but it really showed up, and on the back nothing showed up. She was getting it. She kept looking at it. You know how
at it.
And so she said, "Oh, this is going to drive me crazy." And now it's little tiny needles, and she's pretty far beyond.
Yeah.
So I just I said, "Give me that." She's basically a relatively new knitter, but she's knit some beautiful things now. But I just pulled the slack up on the nearby stitches, and that's where I don't know, that's why you thought of it.
That's why I thought of it.
And I just pulled enough slack that I could pull the slub off of the front of the garment. And so now there's this little loop, and I said later you can tack it down somehow with some extra yarn or something.
But I also thought about Arn and Carlos and talked about how to pick up.
She was too far beyond to do that, but yes. So what you did.
So I wasn't.
Yes.
So I knew that I could make a loop and pick it up on the next round, but that was also something that Arn and Carlos mentioned about, sometimes when you're doing color work and some of the stitches are really long and elongated and you want to cinch up some of that yarn, you can pick up the bar between
on the next
round. And so that's what made
the bar
me think
that's attached to that stitch.
to that long stitch. So you can, instead of easing and trying to smooth
That's
out.
what I do. I go back and ease them out.
After the
takes
fact.
forever. But that's a great idea.
Yeah. So anyway, I was pleased with
Cool.
myself.
Worked for the slab as well. That's
It did.
awesome. Okay, so before we move on, though, we are really almost done. We're going to mention these, right? Back here.
Oh,
This beautiful little vest. Vests are like all the big hit right now. Do you want to talk about that one?
I don't know anything about this one, but let's see. Lightweight vest. And I was telling Kim, this doesn't feel lightweight, but it's 100% Portuguese merino yarn, Yao, paired with silk mohair. So is this actually made out of the Rosa Pomar?
I don't know.
So this is a pattern, Burgos, by Rosa Pomar. And
it's just a cute little vest.
yeah, I mean, vests are so in.
Yeah,
Speaking
so
of
in.
vests, there's a Bûches, I don't know what it's called, Bûches Cafe. Thea Coleman, who's Baby Cocktails, names all of her patterns after cocktails. And I want to call it the Bûches Cafe, but I could be wrong. I know it starts with Pousse. And it is made out of this Legros mohair by Bûches in these colors.
So beautiful.
And it is, if you haven't seen the pattern, definitely look it up. Now, this isn't one of my favorite things, but it is a favorite thing. And Pick Up Every Stitch has just gorgeous. They have every color of this.
I love
it's
it.
so beautiful. I feel like it would knit up really quickly, and it's a beautiful pullover with, it's got some, you can do contrasting ribbing on the collar and the sleeves, and then there's a little bit of color work along the hem. Yeah, these are the colors that Thea Coleman used for hers. So, yeah. Anyway,
And of course, everybody has done Sophie scarves and Sophie scarves.
Yeah.
And what's this one back here?
Sophie Shawl.
What's the sweater? Do you know?
This is the Monday sweater by Petite Knit that Felicia knit, and it is in the Emilia and Philomene yarn that I used for my Oslo hat.
The yarn with
which
the
is
matching mohair, right?
which is
Beautiful.
a Canadian yarn.
It's gorgeous.
Absolutely beautiful. She wore it the other day.
Because everybody always asks about that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's it. We are officially on to favorite things.
Cool.
Oh, I did have one acquisition.
Oh, okay.
So my husband saw these red Oslo hats, and he wanted one so badly, and I said, what color? And he said blue. So I did come here to Pick Up Every Stitch and buy blue. It doesn't have a color name, I realized, though.
No, and that's the same color that I used for this, but I've got the Turkish plum mohair. So
Yeah. So I got him that, and I'll make him an Oslo hat eventually.
Did he try it on?
I don't, maybe he did. I don't know. I don't remember. I wanted to get them in the mail, really. That's why I don't even have them here, but yeah, wanted to get them in the mail. So, favorite things. Do you want to talk about your favorite thing, or should I?
Okay, so now I have like two non-knitting. Well, one of them's sort of knitting related. So here in the States on our public broadcasting system station, the third season of All Creatures Great and Small is
Cute show.
is airing, and I just love it. But there is just some spectacular knitwear in that show. So we get it after the UK gets it, and I don't know where you can see it otherwise, but I subscribe to PBS, so I get to watch it. And I have been slowly, rationing the episodes, but even the farmers who are mucking about in the pig pen are wearing beautiful Fair Isle vests and things. So if you don't tune in for the story, definitely tune in and look at the knitwear.
It's gorgeous.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I love that. Did you have
I
another
love the
favorite
show.
thing?
It's just really sweet. I do, and it's funny because I get the Detoxinista emails, and I get an email, and it's for this curry chicken soup. And I look at the recipe, and it's got red lentils in it and everything I love. So I download the recipe, and it literally takes me 30 minutes to make this recipe.
Wow.
I can have dinner on the table in 30 minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
And I've made it 3 times in probably 10 days, and I eat it, like I said, I would eat it for breakfast. But anyway, I eat it for lunch and dinner. And last night, I poured it over. It was really thick last night, I think, because my husband was working late, and it had simmered a long time. And I ladled it over some baked potatoes. And it was delicious.
Yeah.
And you can, no chicken. You can use vegetable broth, so you can make it completely vegan. It has some coconut milk in it. And, carrot, celery, garlic, ginger, a quart of chicken stock, but you could use vegetable stock, and a cup of red lentils, and some curry powder. And I put a little bit of cilantro in it, and it's delicious.
Nice.
So anyway, favorite recipe of the week. So if you want dinner in a hurry and you like curry, that rhymes.
And soup.
And I have to say, there's a wide range of curries, and I bought this curry from Whole Foods. It's one of their 365 brands, and it's very mild. So I think almost anybody would like it.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So anyway, nice healthy dinner. I'm a soup person.
Yeah, so my favorite thing this time is I mentioned it in our New Year's video, and I hadn't even planned on mentioning it, but I can't stop thinking about this one sweater I saw at New York Sheep and Wool. We were walking through one of the buildings, and I saw a woman wearing this sweater with just the most gorgeous little cabling. It turns out it's brioche cabling, and just so eye-catching. And so I stopped, and I talked to the woman, and turns out her daughter is the designer. And I mean, this sweater just stops you in its tracks. It's so beautiful. Or stops you in your tracks. I guess that's how I would say it. So the designer is Jen Lampin, and her company is Synaptic Stitches. And the sweater that I saw that day was the braided bread sweater. And I told her recently that I had mentioned her in our New Year's video, and I really had to make her my favorite thing for episode 15. And because I actually think I asked her mom if I could take a picture of her, because I mean, it just was so beautiful, and I couldn't find the picture. So Jen is letting us use pictures. She's going to send me a picture of the sweater. But it's so beautiful. And as we know, I have a queue of sweaters, of yarns matched with patterns, and I'm going to start with Here Comes the Sun, but I'm going to buy yarn to make. I decided, because I can't stop thinking about it. And I said before, I really don't think I'll ever do brioche, but now I'm going to do brioche one of these days. It's brioche. Oh. I'm going to do brioche one of these days, and my first brioche project will be this sweater. Oh, wow. So I actually contacted Felicia, because I knit out of my stash, right? My stash is sweater quantities with patterns, but then I have to replenish my stash, right? So I still buy when I see something I love. I buy patterns and yarn to match. So I did buy the pattern, and I asked Felicia to pull. She said, well, what colors are you thinking? Just some options. I'm not going to buy the yarn right now, but I'm going to buy it soon. And so she pulled these two, because they're 2-color brioche cabling.
Is that the Moondrake?
This is Moondrake.
And they just started carrying this, and I have to say it's really, really beautiful yarn.
Yeah. So I said, she's like, what colors are you thinking? And I said, I mean, my first thought is like greens or blues or something, maybe some more neutrals. So she pulled that. It's gorgeous. I should take pictures of it. I had these all together in little sets. And then she pulled this. Little different, right? So pretty. Emilia and Philomene Josephine, along with Julie Asseline Fino. So cool.
And this is a little variegated.
Wait, is that, pretty. Or maybe this goes with this and this goes with this.
Oh.
Do you think? I got them mixed up. But honestly, they're all kind of similar, so they could go with whatever. The two Julie Asselines go together. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and in our last video, I wore my pink C2 sweater, and it's Julie Asseline, Fino, and Anatolia. So beautiful. So these are gorgeous. So I could make it with those greens. And then this Moondrake with this Emilia and Philomene, that's really pretty too. So the lower layer is darker, and the top layer, the cabling of the brioche, is a lighter color. And so the next one, if I really, really, really want to go electric, is this.
Wow.
Look at that.
Yes.
That would really be eye-catching. More Moondrake.
Yeah.
And then another one more subtle would be more of the Pasquale. This is the balayage.
That would be really subtle, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I could buy one of each and knit up a swatch. I don't know.
Yeah.
I could. And then if I don't use that one, I could rip it out and use it for something else.
You can make a Sophie scarf.
I could. I haven't made a Sophie scarf yet. Exactly. So that's my favorite thing is Jen Lampin's Synaptic Stitches braided bread sweater.
Wow.
And I did buy the pattern, and I might sneak that into my queue a little earlier than later, but I loved it. It's just, as I said, I could not stop thinking about it since October.
So I looked up on my phone while you were talking. It is the Pousse Cafe.
How do you spell
Pousse
it?
like mousse.
Okay.
Mousse. Pousse Cafe. So by Thea Coleman, which is baby cocktails.
Cool.
Yeah. So she tells a funny story. I listened to an interview. The reason why her company is called Baby Cocktails is not only because all of her alcohol is tax deductible, but because I think when her kids were little, they used to get together. She used to get together with some neighborhood friends, and they would park their babies in the strollers. And, it was witching hour, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and no alcohol was involved, but they started calling it Baby Cocktails.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so that's why her company is called Baby Cocktails.
That's so cool. You know all these interesting little tidbits.
Oh.
So fun.
I know. I always tell my husband I'd be a good contestant on Jeopardy. Random facts. I'm full of random facts.
Not me. Not me at all.
Yeah.
Anything else we need to talk about?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I think that's it.
Okay.
All right. So if we have any updates about Vogue Knitting Live, if we want to, like what time we'll be at the Mayak table, obviously we'll have to then do it in a different video because we won't have another episode before Vogue Knitting Live. So watch our Instagram, watch our community page here on YouTube. And yeah. So what else? Comment, like,
Subscribe.
Share with your friends. Share with your dog trainers.
No.
Who wears Stephen West shawls to your house.
I know.
That's so cool.
I know.
And we do have memberships, so become a member if you want. And we have merchandise. We're really bad salespeople. I almost brought a t-shirt today to say, buy a t-shirt, but it's too salesy, so I didn't.
Yeah.
So buy a t-shirt.
And I think I did post the t-shirt with your purple hair. I know there's a mug with your purple hair. So we got another logo made with purple hair. Because she's like, what if I dye my hair purple? So.
And actually, one of our recent prize winners, we gave away merch, and you sent
Sarah
it to
Brandt.
her, and she got it. Did you see her email?
She's the only person who has a purple-haired Kim mug.
Oh, and then you sent something else with it, right?
So we sent the mug, a little Notions pouch, and then 2 skeins of some really beautiful periwinkle sheep blue yarn.
Yay!
Yeah,
She was very happy.
She was very happy. I finally got it in the mail.
Yeah.
Yes.
And don't forget about our Knitters Planner affiliate link if you want to buy one. I think I saw there's an actual sale. So we don't have a discount code right now, but definitely they go on sale, especially now because the year started. So, subscribe to them or follow them on Instagram so you know when the sales are or their emails. Get their emails and buy one. And then if you use our affiliate link, then we do get a little kickback on that. And that's the last thing I wanted to talk about. I did buy, and you already bought, sort of a camera setup so we can maybe start doing tutorials. And I bought a mat also because I don't have a surface. If you're doing a tutorial, it's down, right? I have a dark, dark, dark brown table and everything would just disappear on it. And I can't do it in my kitchen on the countertop because it's in the middle of everything.
Right.
So I bought like a backdrop kind of mat to do it on. And so we might actually share it, right? And so we might start trying to do tutorials. One thing I might do is for my kids' knitting classes, I had recorded a long time ago some videos for them. And so I might, people have been asking for my curriculum or whatever. So I might add a little playlist and put some of those in there. How to do finger knitting. You taught your grandchildren finger knitting. So, yeah, so we're probably going to try to do, you wanted to do one on how you
do the underarm, closing up underarm holes.
Yes.
Before the fact.
And we could even do some on the different bind-offs. Bind-offs instead of ribbing alternatives.
Yeah, we had so many great suggestions. So I'm really curious about that.
And also your use of GoodNotes. Could you do a tutorial on that? Would you use a camera?
I'm not sure if I would do a screen recording or
how that would work. But I could definitely do my knitter's planner, how I do that.
Right.
My little shorthand. I've been showing Elise, like instead of, this is what I do, you know, anyway. Not that it's the right way, but that's it helps me. But anyway, so that's our plans for the future.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
And
I'll see you next time.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. After all this time, I know how to press the red button. Stitch marker.
Every time we hear that little telltale noise. We stop every 20 minutes, so
right.
Just let us know if
you're trapped for 20 minutes.
You ready?
Never.
Bye, Pearl. I feel so weird in this thing. Hope I don't keep fidgeting with it. If I keep messing with it, tell me to stop. Okay, you can leave. Just let's finish talking about it. Okay. Sorry. So the next one, if I really want to go electric. Oh, you're drinking. I like how you said we'll see you next time. We've never said that before.
Oh, really?
That was so cute.
I'm still lost, I'm still alone. Who's going to make it right?